Hi there, and welcome back to another edition of Scale Up Radio, the podcast inspired by the Entrepreneurial Scale Up system and designed to making navigating our scale up journeys that little bit easier by learning from each other's experiences. I'm Granger Forson, and on this episode of the show, I'm joined by Scott Gulliver, founder of Fluff Software. Scott shares his inspiring journey of scaling his business from transforming a pandemic startup into a thriving company to his focusing on delivering excellence to visitors' attractions and his commitment to work-life balance. To ensure you don't miss any inspirational future episodes, do subscribe to Scale Up Radio wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. Also, you can nominate a guest for Scale Up Radio if you know someone with an interesting scale-up journey. You can find out how in the show notes. So, let's now dive into the inspiring journey of vision, growth, and excellence with Scott Gulliver. So, hello Scott Gulliver, welcome to Scale Up Radio. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, hey, thank you for having me on. It really means a lot. As you mentioned, I'm Scott Gulliver. I run a company called Fluff Software. We're a software agency in sunny Swindon in England, and we build lots of exciting mobile apps, web apps, and great experiences for our clients.
Brilliant. I do like a nice software company. I have a background in software teams and things. So let's drill this in a bit more. When did you get going? How long have you been going?
Yeah, so we started the company in 2020, as a lot of companies seem to be born out of that pandemic era. And in many cases, it's all I knew from starting a business. So I don't think the pandemic changed too much in that respect. But yeah, before that, my entire career has been in software development, kind of working for all range of companies. And very much getting to work for agencies with agencies and wanted to bring the best of what I'd seen into one place, which is where the company was kind of born from. And obviously, since then, we've kind of gone lots of various directions and learned lots of things along the way, and kind of steadily grown from that point, really.
So you wanted to bring all that best practice and thoughts into making a business successful. So how big are you now currently? How many staff?
Yeah, so our current team is 6. We're due to be 7 in a couple of weeks. We're just waiting for our 7th person to join us. Which is, I think, by anyone else's imagination, a very small team. To me, it suddenly seems quite large. We've grown quite significantly over the past year, but very, very interesting challenges on that front at the moment.
So describe your model to us, software, apps, what marketplaces, what do you do with your clients? What type of clients? Give us an understanding of what you do.
Yeah, of course. So we love to work very collaboratively with our clients. We are very much on the kind of consulting first approach with what we do. We work with companies of all shapes and sizes. So we've worked with couple of person startup teams that have no kind of technical team to work with us. Alongside other companies that are much larger, we work with corporates who have much bigger internal teams that we can work with, and we kind of plug the gaps and make sure that we can lead with expertise on the experience side of things. And that's really where we love to play is delivering great experiences to the end users of our clients. But practically, that means we get a lot involved in a lot of web apps, a lot of apps that kind of go public facing, but of course the entire back end to support that as well. So we do everything from back end systems to front end. And we've worked with all shapes and sizes. And really over the past year, we've been shifting to our new focus, which is the visitor attraction sector, which we're early days on, and we're working with some fantastic clients in that space, but continue to work with everyone at the same time as well.
So you started off building a business. Was it just yourself?
So I started with a co-founder. There's been some ups and downs along the way. That co-founder left after around 12 months, I think it was. Since then it's been me. We've always been around 2. So I quickly took on my brother-in-law at the time, actually, who was a fantastic addition. We took him from no coding experience to being a fantastic developer today. And he's been with me sharing all of the ups and downs along the way, which has been amazing. And since then, we've been 2 of us actually for the majority. This time last year, we were still the 2 of us, Orban and I. And last year had a quite a significant period of growth where we managed to take on a few more people to help us out, which was a very busy year where inevitably had to make some quick decisions around what extra people we needed, what expertise we needed, and started to invest in the core team.
And the development that you do, you talk about web apps, the back end. Do you then manage and host those back ends and structures? Are you one and done and pass over to your clients? What's the sort of business model around that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we do typically take on quite a lot of that hosting requirement. We tend to like to help our clients get to a point where they can host it themselves. So for the bigger corporates, that makes a lot of sense. We're working in their environment where they're already hosting a lot of their own infrastructure anyway. They have IT teams to support. For the smaller companies, we're often taking care of the hosting and making sure that things are moved forward, updated, secure, and all of that good stuff as well. We we tend to, again, leaning on that kind of consultative element, we love working long term with companies. So we're a very relationship first company, and we've been working with our clients mostly since the start. We've had a lot of clients at the start that we're still working with today. We've not lost a client yet, which is something I'm very proud of, and we continue to do great work with our clients. I'm very conscious that when we deliver something to a client, there's usually a need to keep investing in that and making sure that it works well for the company that we're building it for.
And what delight, how do you delight your clients? I always love to ask that question. What's your sort of business model? Why do clients love coming to you, do you think?
That's a great question. Yeah. I think we take a lot of the pain out of software development. I think it's an interesting world in the software development space at the moment. There are a lot of platforms that can help people build things themselves these days, which are fantastic. And actually, we've often got involved in projects where that's a big part of how we deliver what we do easily to a client. But I think that there's still increasingly a lot of complexity in the world of software development, and much more of a need these days for almost every company to get involved in some kind of development for their business, or at least some technology. And so I think what we do really well is go back to basics with the client, really understand what's going to work for them. We almost never take a brief and just deliver on it. But what we do is we help people either to form those briefs in the first place, but also to very much take those briefs and go back to basics and understand, what does the return on investment look like? What does good look like? What does it need to be to support that long-term vision for the company? And I think what we do is we do that in a really friendly and collaborative way, in a pragmatic way. We aim to feel like an internal part of their team, and very much that kind of relationship first approach that I mentioned before is a really important part, I think, of working with a company like ours. I think sometimes it's quite scary for companies to reach out to a technical agency, and quite often they get another language back to them. And I think for us, it's really important that we're speaking and working with our clients to take that pain away.
Yeah, no, I could definitely know that, working in that arena, partly with myself previously. So let's, you talked about a couple of really interesting things. I'd just like to explore a little bit first before we go on to that. The first one is that you've actually grown really fast in the last year. So practically taken on a further 4 employees, if I get that right. My maths are correct, in the last year, and another one coming on board. So why the rapid growth? What's been going on to allow you to do that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think last year we really kind of made the effort at the start of the year to really accelerate our kind of outreach efforts. We get a lot of our work through referrals and continue to do so. And last year, certainly at the start of the year, we decided to really start trying to make things happen in that space. And inevitably, all of that kind of paid off actually kind of at once. We had everything that kind of fell in around June last year, I think it was. Some very big projects all of a sudden, and suddenly in this predicament where we were trusted to deliver quite a lot in quite a short space of time. And it was an interesting one for me, of course. So I've definitely hired before, but not to that scale. And very much with me having taken on all of the work up until that point alongside my other developer, very much learning where my place was and all that, what type of skills we needed, and actually realizing that we needed to start employing much more expertise in the business to help shape some of the platforms we were building. So I think the employing 4 people is definitely what we did. It's the whole thought process around that that's been the thing that I definitely struggled with last year and learned a lot from along the way. We've had to learn quite a lot in quite a short space of time.
Definitely, especially around people management, let alone business structures, let alone writing code and delighting clients. So the other bit I just wanted to go back to, you talked about your brother-in-law and how he didn't write code before, and now he's one of the best coders. Wow, what a fantastic gamble! How did that come about? And how have you developed him? I mean, that's an amazing journey.
Yeah, it is. Like I say, he's doing absolutely fantastic for us. is we've so my wife also joined the company last year. We've kind of become a little family-run company all of a sudden, which is definitely what we hadn't anticipated being at the start. But it's kind of worked out pretty nicely. And I think for me, at that point, we were in the second year of the company. My co-founder had just left, and we were in this place where I was really wanting to step the business up to the next phase, and knew that there would be some interesting things along the way. And it was a very opportunistic thing. I think on reflection on paper, you might have looked to someone who had alternative skills or, various other things to join me. But at the time he was looking for a new opportunity. He'd always had a passion for coding and loved the idea of getting involved. And it was at a really unique time actually where I needed lots of different things doing. And so as much as he was learning code in that first year, he was also helping me with marketing, very much reaching out to people and doing a lot of the legwork that I couldn't have asked any other employee to do. So it was a fantastic kind of trade-off there. But very much investing in him has been wonderful. And of course, he continues to be a huge part of the business now, and very much likes to, or at least he tells me, he likes to shoulder the challenges along the way that I have to shoulder as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. So actually, in small starting up businesses, there are so many things we have to do. We all have to do it. If we think I'm joining a business just to do one role, then actually, go into the corporate world to do that. Within a small startup world, we all have to do lots of different elements within that. So yeah, fantastic journey. And so let's go back to the beginning, the starting of the business, 2020. Yes, the pandemic came along, but you're still here, which is fantastic. You talked about that you wanted to bring best practices into one place of doing that. So what was the inception? Why did you do this, and what were you thinking about at the time?
Yeah. So, like I said, I very much have worked for agencies in the past, and one agency in particular that I worked for has been a fantastic, I think, blueprint in some ways of what I wanted to replicate. It was a company who really understood quality at its core, and they were well renowned for delivering best practice to their clients day in and day out. And moved from that role and then worked in a role that I was working with lots of other agencies and didn't have the same quality. And I felt it was a very transactional relationship often, where again, we would kind of, there would be an expectation that briefs would be handed over and the work would just be done and handed back. And I see the fit for those in some places, but very much I wanted to try and create a place where we could help companies to really not just deliver the thing that was in their head, but also help them to get there, as well. And I think that, again, you spoke earlier about kind of the how we deliver to our clients. And I think that that's a lot of it. We end up taking things that are in their heads, ideas, and really help to shape them into reality ultimately. And yeah, it's, there are certainly lots of great agencies out there and lots of varying agencies. And we continue to try and evolve our company into a way or into a place that's really trusted by our clients to take away pain, to take away the challenges that they have with technology, and entrust us to go and deliver something great for them.
So, over the last few years, you've now scaled up in the last year. Take us through some of the, what's gone right, what's gone wrong, what have been some of your challenges, and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So we, I mean, for one, I've been delighted in the fact that we've scaled up to this point. I think the vision I had when I started out the company is that we would be a bit larger than this by now. But of course, along the way, you manage to learn your own path. And I think we're actually at a point where I've had to overcome learnings along the way to a point where I'm really happy with where we are today. So getting the opportunity last year to really start accelerating into this bigger team and not having everything run through me was amazing. Speaking of that, I think that's been one of the biggest challenges, is just getting out of my own way sometimes, and certainly getting myself out of being the bottleneck. I think it's really hard was really hard for me, where everything in the business once ran through me, and we've built up years with our clients now. And there's a lot that's in my head still that isn't down on paper or anywhere else, and that's a challenge, especially when we continue to see work with our existing clients, and even for the new clients. There's a lot that we've learned, a lot of the way that we deliver what we do that's, again, in my head, that has had to be teased out by the team, and they've been fantastic in making that happen. I think we've done really well in making sure that we've hired people that can be self-starting, that can be take their own initiative, and really help me to be the best leader in the company that I can be. and it's been a very two-way relationship there. I've been open and honest with all of them since they joined that they would have to help me as much as, I will help them, of course. And I think that's really helped along the way. But yeah, that we continue to evolve that. We continue to challenge what we do well. And certainly there's been a lot over the past 6 months. We've been very busy and people have been thrown into the deep end. There's been a lot that we've had to learn around communication, around expectations. We had to let someone go last year. There was a kind of expectation that wasn't quite met there with regards to the workload that we expect from our team. And being a remote team, again, that also brings its own challenges as well. So we're distributed all over the world. We've got 2 of my team in South Africa, 1 in Ukraine, and 3 of us in the UK. So we have those challenges of kind of distribution and remote working that are very core, along with the benefits, of course.
And I've picked up on your website that you use Gather, the software to bring each other together because you are so remote. So I sort of guess from looking at your website around that. So yeah, so what are the advantages and disadvantages, do you think, of having such a remote business, and how do you come together and make that successful?
Yeah, so I think communication is key, and that's one of the reasons why we have things like Gather in place. It's about having visibility of each other. And I think that's something that I've struggled with on at times as well. I think I certainly had an expectation when I started and when we started to build the team that people would just, do well on their own and communicate when they needed to. But actually, I think what I've learned is it's really important for people to feel included. And Gather, for those that don't know, is a system which allows us to kind of be within a virtual office together, at least. You get avatars that are kind of placed around our virtual office that everyone contributes to. And I think just having that alone, that extra layer of you're sitting virtually next to someone is huge for the team. Just being able to know that someone's next to them, at least in spirit, and being able to call on Slack or wherever else we want to communicate. And so that communication thread has been important, but the tools have been fairly easy for us. And we leaned on a lot of tools throughout our 4 years now. We've used things for everything from Gather to Slack to even VR we've played around with as well, and working remotely in virtual reality, which has been interesting. But I think that cultural piece is the most important, which I'm learning is obviously the fundamental to all this. We need people to be proactive in what they do, to reach out when they get stuck, to not be afraid to ask for help, and actually to encourage that through the team as well.
And you talk about the culture. So how have you driven it? Because it's so you're a year old when it comes to having that amount of people in the team. How are you driving that cultural development of bringing it all together? And I love the way you talked about that. We need to be in a team. People aren't individuals. We do enjoy that interaction, that capability of teams. So what type of things apart from Gather have you built to help these cultural development take place?
Yeah, so culture is one of those pieces that I'm again learning is very important. And I think up until last year, I'd certainly never really felt that it was a hugely important part of a company. But I think especially as we grow, it's essential that we hire people into that culture, that people are made aware of that culture to begin with and know what they're coming into, and that we can help people to evolve it alongside us as well. So some of our core values that we always strive to lean on are things like being creative, being pragmatic. Being honest as well and accountable is another one of our key values that we've only added in this past year. And I think what people end up having is this sense of ownership with all of that as well. They like to be part of a team, but also know that they can drive that forward. So in terms of our kind of practices, we try to lean on some fun elements alongside what we do as well in terms of building that kind of team spirit. We have an hour every Friday where we get to play some games together on a call and just hang out with each other, and trying to build that remote working as well. So we have lots of pair programming sessions, lots of opportunities for the team to work with each other day in and day out. And you really feel that coming through. There's lots of random chat on Slack and everything else. It's a nice kind of open and honest place that we work in. But again, I think it's taken time, and what we're trying to build in now is a way for people to impact the company as well. And I think that's a big part of our culture as well. So every week we get together where we discuss any opportunities, any issues that we're dealing with, any ideas people have, and try and weave those back in. And I don't know whether that kind of crosses into culture, but it feels like a very cultural thing that people feel part of something that they can drive as well.
No, those are all great things that I'd highly recommend. All of those types of things. I like the idea of coming together and playing games on a Friday for an hour or so. Fantastic. And paired programming. That I mean, I never quite got to. I started experimenting it with the teams that I led previously on paired programming, but I never quite convinced the business that actually it actually brings that huge benefit of focusing on quality and getting it right first time and faster. But it was yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, you've hired five people because you've got four.
Yep.
You said, how did that go? What have you learned? What are the pluses and the negatives of trying to hire people that fast?
So we've had to button up our hiring processes along the way. I think our most recent round was what I would consider quite laborious for a company of our size. And I think again, it's probably something that's been probably wrong in my head for a long time, is that we're small. We shouldn't have to go through the same huge corporate processes that every other large company goes through. But I think in many ways, it's more important for us to hire the right person, because they're suddenly 25% of the team, and that's a huge impact that they're going to have or not have. And so with a few missteps along the way with hiring not quite the right people, we've had to kind of get that right. And I think our latest round has been incredible. It's been heartbreaking to see so many people go through the process and so many steps and put in so much effort throughout. But I think what we've ended up with is someone that's going to be a really great fit again for our team. And in that as well, what we love to do is get the team involved. We're aware that we're going to be a small company, and everyone gets to work with everyone else every day. Those relationships are massive for us. And so having the team input to that process has been really amazing as well. So we've got everyone from our tester to our PM, input into that process along the way as well.
And you said you've changed it quite a number of times. The latest one, what sort of key things have you put into the process that you didn't have in the early days?
Yeah, so I mean, tests for one are something that we've added. We lean on people being expert for us, and I think we need to continue to deliver excellence to our clients, and the way that we do that is to hire people who are excellent. And so being able to prove that through either technical tests or some other tests has been a more recent addition. Again, it's probably something we should have had in since the start, but very much learning along the way. We also got them in the latest round to do a presentation to the whole team, and that was a really interesting way for them to be able to interact with a new set of people. But it drove a lot of two-way conversation throughout the team and the interviewees as well, and the candidates. It was an incredible way for us just to drive some communication and get some really great feedback. And there was some interesting questions I would have never answered coming from all corners of the team, which has been amazing.
Excellent. Oh, I like that one definitely. For doing that. So business. It's hard, possibly, but the most important thing is money. Yeah, it's the cash. Yeah. So how do you keep on track of the finances and the business and the cash?
Yeah, so one of the first things we did when we started the company was to hire an accountant. I have no great knowledge of the financial side. I certainly have had to learn that along the way as well. Yeah, I mean, being an agency, it's a really interesting space, because we do we are often aiming to command quite high fees. That's how we generate our income. But to deliver that, we need great people who cost money as well. And I think it's been a real balancing act from day one in terms of getting that right. And certainly over the last year, we again took on more work than we had dreamt to have the year before, but had suddenly had to look at costs of hiring new people in. And so there's always this balancing between investing in the company and not. I think especially so my wife now running the business for me as well, it's it commands a huge amount of our personal income as well. And so there's this very direct, or there has been this very direct link between the business income and our income to our household as well. So again, balancing that and making the right calls there has been interesting along the way. But we're very invested in kind of growing the business to be something better every year that we go.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's an important aspect to keep an eye on that, to understand it, to think that through. And the amount of money you take out personally from the business could affect the business, but also likewise, you need enough for your own personal life. You can't cut ourselves short. And a lot of business owners can have a habit of I'll pay myself in 5 years' time when the business is really successful, and actually what we're doing is we're undervaluing the true understanding of how the business is growing. Yeah. So yeah, great.
Yeah.
So you've taken on a whole new work, you've taken on new people for doing that. That came off referrals. So, what's next in your marketing? How are you going to keep that pipeline full to keep that growth and development you would want to do?
Yeah, so we've had a really kind of up and down cycle with our work. We've always been traditionally fairly quiet at the start of the year, and we've put this down to after analysing it to actually that we end up getting quite busy at the second half of the year. Very heads down. We kind of stop all marketing and outreach activity, and then we suddenly pop up in January, and there's been nothing for months, and weirdly enough, there's no work. And so we've had this kind of very up and down cycle. So we've been trying to look at ways to flatten that curve a little bit. And the person that's joining us on the 1st of August is actually will be our sales and marketing manager. So kind of really investing into that side of the business now. And for me, it's a really important one. I think there's lots of aspects that we could start dialing up with that. But I'm mindful that there's also all of them take time and attention. We've never bought into SEO at this point yet because we think that there may be other more direct immediate wins that we can focus on. But again, if we'd started that 4 years ago, we'd be in a better position now. So it's all this balance again between what we focus on where. And I think we will be building that marketing engine up with this new person alongside myself over the next year. But we're still very much looking at what that might be. I think there's some direct outreach there for sure. But I think going back a lot to the core of what we do, it's about helping us actually to double down a lot on account management and get the best out of our clients, which ultimately drives a lot of our work to begin with through those referrals and everything else. Delivering that excellence has to be key. I mean, for me to be able to sleep at night for one, but also to drive the business. And beyond that, we'll be looking at education in the space. How can we educate people beyond us, just our clients? How can we help other people in the wider arena?
So you've talked about making decisions, making compromise. Do I do SEO? Do I do this? How do I work that? When do I recruit? How do I recruit? So there's lots of compromises and decisions that we have to make. How do you go about making those sort of key next strategic decisions in your business thinking?
So I think it is something that I have struggled with over the years for sure. I am quite an indecisive person at times, and that doesn't do well for a business owner. I think often I've been very blessed to have had a very good support network around me. I work with a fantastic business coach who's often helping me through those decisions. And it's as you say that there are so many decisions on so many fronts, and I think what has helped in many ways is trying to slim down the number of options that are available to us. So I mentioned this new niche that we're looking at over the past year, and that's been really helpful in terms of narrowing down our fronts on the marketing. What we talk about to who has just been hugely helped because we now are looking at a much narrower segment of the market. And I think we're looking at that on kind of all accounts really. Every week in those sessions with the team, we're trying to look at things that we can carve out as much as bring in. And I think that's one of the things that goes a long way to helping.
Yes, strategies as much as what you say no to as what you say yes to,
Exactly.
Because we have limited time, we have limited resources. Yes, it can make us get fixed in our mindset and we worry about things. So it's great to hear that you've got an external coach that's helping you do some thinking and just ask you some strategic questions around that. Excellent. So what's gone wrong? What do you think has been the one or two biggest mistakes you've done so far, and what have you learned from them?
Yeah, so project management has been one of them. I think last year it was probably kind of inevitable after I looked at it in reflection, but we had a very busy period last year with lots of new people, and inevitably there were things that got missed in terms of quality and everything else. And again, things I would deem as unacceptable. Thankfully, a lot of that did get caught before our clients managed to see any of that. But what it inevitably ended up meaning was a lot of late nights for myself and a few other members of the team that very gratefully put in the work. But those things were difficult last year. We were in a very busy period, trying to look after our clients, and suddenly feeling like everything was a little out of control all of a sudden. in many ways, I think we probably could have done with hiring a little slower and probably staggering the work. I think what we were in the period of last year was having lots of things that sounded amazing. We were like, yes, let's go and do them. If we had only delayed one of them by a month, or started to schedule some of that into the future, that definitely would have helped things. But often our clients need things there and then, and we certainly try and help them where we can. I think one of the other things that has been on the hiring front, so we've had a couple of people that we've taken on throughout the past year or two where they've not quite delivered for us. And I think on reflection, that's as much as how we've set it up more than anything else, which is why we've gone through much better hiring processes to begin with, to make sure that we get people that are going to fit within our kind of ecosystem. But also, we've really reflected on those every time. And that's been, the lowest points of my career have been having to let people go, even if it's because we haven't been quite the right fit. It's just, it's always heartbreaking for me. And like I say, I've always tried to take something from that. And I think what it has been about more than anything is setting better expectations, making sure people have clear goals with what they need to do, and as much about me trying to communicate in a way that's clear and unambiguous than anything to set them up for success in the first place.
And you've made this decision to niche down. You've talked about it a couple of times now on visitor attractions. Where did that thinking come from?
Yeah, so it's we've long been looking for somewhere where we can really start to dial in and really start to work very closely on. So that looking for a niche has kind of been there from the start. I was very aware that in the agency space, I think you kind of need to start specializing at some point to really start to get to the next level.
Yeah.
What we focused on always, my real passion is software, but actually I could care less about technology. For me, software is this delightful thing that should give that extra something to someone in their day. With all of what we do, whether it's back-end systems or front, user-facing apps, it's all about creating that delight. And actually, I love applications that just melt away and just give the user a great experience, whether it's something as simple as a great weather app that gives someone that planning ahead for their day, or whether it's something like Duolingo, which helps people learn new language in a delightful way. That user experience is really something that I find exciting, and you can just do so much with software and technology in that space. And so we were looking for what industries look for delight at their core, what beyond just an extra layer of usability, what sectors really focus on that and at a mission level. And visitor attractions kind of floated to the top when we were doing some market analysis. And it's a really interesting place for us because there are so many visitor attractions out there at the moment that are really looking at technology and how they can integrate better apps, better user experiences. But for me, the really exciting piece is how can you use technology to elevate a place without getting in the way of it. I think there are so many people that jump to looking at VR and AR and all of those exciting things, loads of new apps that can help people to get better experience out of the park. But for me, it's about how can you use technology to help people get their best day ever out of where they're going? How can you better storytell through technology? How can you better plan through technology? And those things are really exciting to me at the moment.
Brilliant. Well, that's fantastic. I thought there was something really magical in that that question that's coming out from there. So thank you so much for that. I like that. Elevating the place and have a better day when you're visiting through technology. Fantastic. So, let's meet up in 5 years' time. Let's have a coffee. Let's talk about what's been happening both professionally and personally for you over the last 5 years. So, what's gonna be going right for you?
So I think for me, it's really about scaling up to a wider set of customers at this point. We would love to start really making some waves in that visitor attraction space, and we're on an early journey there. But what I find that we're doing really well at the moment is applying fresh eyes to the industry and the expertise we've had elsewhere into and bringing some new life into this arena. But yeah, in 5 years, I would hope that we continue to be the distributed team that we are, and we continue to deliver great things to our clients. We've certainly got some ambitious kind of growth goals in the next 5 years, and I think for me, the important thing is getting to 5 years and feeling like I'm not broken, because it's definitely exhausting along the way, kind of scaling up. But yeah, for me, being able to not only have a successful business, but also to have, kept my kids happy along the way and had some magical moments with them will be a fantastic 5 years for us.
And how do you manage that currently? How do you manage that sort of overwhelms difficulty with running a business and the home life?
Yeah, it's a lot, and we've been reflecting over this past week on the school holidays, which are obviously right around the corner for us. And
Yes.
suddenly, myself and my wife working in the company having to balance that as well. But yeah, it's been this past year has been trying. I mean, the most difficult year of my life for sure. And I mean, it sounds a little cliche, but the kids have been what have kept me going. It's really important. They're 7 and 4 at the moment, and at a really kind of magical age where they really are vying for our attention still. And being able to be there for them has been huge, regardless of what the business is doing. But I think ultimately as well, it's been about trying to build systems that help me to reduce the stress in the business, because that's been the thing that's got in the way sometimes of that time with the kids. And so we've been looking at systems more than anything else to help me communicate quickly to the team, and also to just get a quick pulse from the company about how it's doing. So when I wake up inevitably at 3 a.m, I can go back to sleep rested, knowing that everything's okay.
Brilliant. Using your ideas of technology to actually make your life easier as well. I totally,
Yeah.
totally, totally agree with that. We can have a long conversation about that, which would take us well beyond this podcast for that. So, well, Scott, thank you so much for a fantastic conversation we've had. That taking that idea of you wanted to build your own company based on the best practices that you did back in 2020, taking on your brother-in-law as this work like doing, but realizing that you have to do everything to do that, and investing in him to be able to become a software developer. Fantastic, well done on that. I love that brilliantly. But that real sort of passion you've got for technology being an enabler for people, enabler for your clients to take that forwards. And I thought that was really comes true out this conversation around doing that. How you've now used that to niche into what you want to achieve in the marketplace you want to do. You're now investing in marketing and sales growth through taking on people through that. The realism that you made mistakes. Things haven't gone quite well with the recruitment, but to take on that many staff and that amount of work in a very short space of time, fantastic. Well done to you for doing that, and playing with those different solutions and ways of working together, realizing that the team has to feel part of a team, even though you're right across around the world, and using technologies to help you bring that together. And I love the Friday game playing together. Awesome. I'll sit in on that one sometime and see what you guys get up to. That's awesome. And that sort of final really sort of realization that software should be a delight. It should melt into the background and just be something that brings someone else's elevated day to them, and that drove you to the niche that you're now focusing on doing. So that's come through this whole conversation and that understanding of what you do. So thank you, Scott. It's really good. We always finish with a quick fire round, if I may.
Of course.
So off we go. If you go back to the younger you, what advice would you give yourself?
I think it would be keep going. It's going to be okay. I think that's the thing I keep having to look back and remind myself and I struggle with. Yeah, it would be that.
Brilliant. Any books you recommend?
I've read a fantastic one recently by Scott O'Neill, which is "Be Where Your Feet Are," which is a fantastic book around his advice and kind of life experiences of trying to be mindful of just being where you are rather than constantly looking forward and balancing those two.
Awesome. Podcasts. Do you listen to any? Any you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, there's I've listened to podcasts all the time. There's a couple that I thought might be really interesting that I often listen to. One is the Two Bobs, which is a fantastic look at creative agency life and the learnings there. How I Built This is also another fantastic one that I love hearing the kind of foundational stories of some of the bigger companies out there and their struggles to begin with as well.
Excellent. Yeah, some great ones there. Onto your mobile phone, do any apps make a difference for you?
There's been one recently that I've loved, which is an app called Finch, which is it's a self-care app. You basically look after a little creature, and by basically helping yourself, taking care of yourself. And again, like this past year it's been often tough to remember that I need to look after myself, and having that's been fantastic. And I mean, a shout out to Duolingo as well. I have a love-hate relationship with that bird, but it keeps me going to learn a little bit every day.
Brilliant. Yes. Yeah. My favorite question of all, who's had the most influence on you as a business leader?
I can't think of a single person, which is awful because there are hundreds.
One from your past. Yeah.
Tim Ferriss would be a big one. So the 4-hour work week was a big inspiration for starting the company. Of course, never quite got there and continued to do that. But I think just some of those learnings around doing things differently have been huge.
Yeah, and what I love about that book is actually he talks about the title was the ultimate sort of branding type thing that brought people to read it, but it's not actually full of you're going to only work 4 hours a week. It's actually around how you improve your life and your work life, and lots of hacks and ideas to do that. And I love that book as well. Absolutely, yeah, outstanding. So finally, Scott, how can people get hold of you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. I love to share a lot and be involved in lots of conversations on LinkedIn. So I'm there as Scott Gulliver. Our website's also fluff.software as well, where we share a lot around exciting news and ideas around technology.
Brilliant. Well, Scott, thank you so much for this fantastic conversation all about the world of software and how you delight your clients. It's been fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.